And our third panelist is Tom Worrel, and Tom is with Ryder. If you have children that went to college, you probably rented a truck from him at some point to move them in and out of college. So I think everybody knows the rental business of Ryder. They also have a tremendously large fleet business where they manage fleets of trucks and operate fleets, and all the associated logistics about that. And what we're specifically going to talk about is the fueling program that was developed by Tom in Visual FoxPro a long time ago, and a great program. So a Ryder truck.
Well, I have a good bit in common with Dave. After I got out of the military, I went into executive search and figured that I'd be able to find the perfect job there. And I always knew I wanted to be in computers. My training before it was a very extensive hardware background. Before I went in the military, got drafted and went into the Air Force and ended up in communications. So when I was in the executive search, the Apple II came out, and I saw how I could put data together in ways that I could make presentations and say, of all the polymer rheologists in the country, these are the ones, and so on. You know, the stuff we take for granted today. But remember, even 1, 2, 3 wasn't out at that point. There was nothing. So I wrote a database program and the other stuff I needed. And as I worked, I got to know a lot of high-level executives. And finally, I said, I've just got to move over. I had set up a veterinarian and some other customers early on. So I ended up talking to CFO at Ryder and said, you've seen the stuff that I can do. I'd like to come and work with you. And one of the simple things that's amazing that helps is on the IBM computer, the first ones that were out, I just did batch files that put a menu on the screen that was colored with numbers, and the users could just hit the numbers and launch programs. Well, at that time, that was a big deal. And before I went over there, the person in charge said, do you know dBase? Well, on a Thursday, I can relate to Patrick. On a Thursday, I went over to a friend's bike shop, learned dBase, and started developing on Monday for Ryder. Well, it turns out it wasn't too bad a job because we're migrating that program today. So when I went over there, I was really concerned about getting 80 hours ahead so that I'd be able to continue the business. So one of the people that was there said, from what we've seen you do, you'll be here for at least 8 months. Well, that turns out that was 1984. And so here I still am. And most of the systems I created ended up evolving, as Fox tends to do, into some mission critical software. And because we didn't have our head very high, everything worked because I stayed on top of it, mitigating any issues. All of a sudden, one day, somebody decided that I wasn't as young as I used to be. And they also, as happened with Patrick, everyone became much more security conscious. And we've been running off Fox tables all this time. So you can imagine the IT guys were totally horrified. So we had to do the migration. We found Macrosoft. Our stuff is so extensive, I don't know. I certainly couldn't have done any migration on this and would have hated to try to run a team. If you want to put up one of your slides, John, we still have running DOS for one of the environmental data, again, a cross point with David. We have all of the environmental stuff, all the fuel tanks that go in the ground. We keep track of all of that. and what's going on and where they are and all of the. It turns out also that the states have super funds that will allow we can recoup our expenses if we can prove them properly. So with my system, they've been able to recover around $20-30 million. So it's kind of taking care of itself. On the left is the DOS system. On the right is our new version. And also we had 3 separate programs that were created over time that I just linked together with a menu system. We adapted that so all of those are merged into one area with their common elements. That's both good and bad because users, let me tell you, after users have been using something for 30 years, they think it's old until they try something new. So that's where we are. This is one small piece. As John mentioned earlier, really it's in fueling that is a great deal of what we do. You'll notice that this background is what one small screen out of our system. This is fuel carrier management. So it allows the user to see where Ryder stands all across the country in terms of their fuel inventories and so forth. And it's also evolved so that we have a column that's, go back one, that's red, green, or blue, or red, yellow, or green based on where the inventories are. And we also have a column for weather where we go out to the weather service and check for low temperatures. Diesel trucks go down real bad when the temperature gets, even if they're treated, when it gets below -10. So we have to take special care, and that provides an alert. We next have an arbitrage column, which compares our contracts. We tend to go with a couple of different indexes, and if one of those, we can get a 10-cent spread. You know, when you do several 100 million gallons, anything you multiply by that number is a pretty big number. So they have a chance on loads to pick the best deal and pick up daily profits, that kind of thing. So my first experience with Fox was probably at the first Ashton Tate conference, or the second one. I can't remember which one they allowed Fox to come in. Well, as it happened with many people at that time, that was the end of dBase. The performance and everything was so good. So all of these systems have been running since basically 1984, and we're moving them today, C#, Angular, and .NET.